let's go ahead and read the B patch notes so that way you can get some people's reactions and hear it. Okay, so mid patch updates, April 4th. Wow, it's already April. Oh my god, what the heck? I thought it was March. Oh my god, time is flying by. All right, 4-4. Traits, quote, our buff to Blue Kale, Home of Power, brought her a bit over the line, but when that buff was combined with the newly developed strategy of moving Kale into the second row to hit the back line, we were forced to act fast to prevent 14.7 from becoming Kale's patch. We're making Kale's ability more intuitive by having it stop shortly after hitting his primary target, which will allow us to ship a lighter nerf to the Tome of Power, leaving it in a position where it's still stronger than it was in the previous patch. So now Storyweaver Kale's ability stops shortly after hitting its primary targets. So what people don't know, if you haven't experienced it yet, is that Kale's ability, when she casts, would go beyond, it would go past that frontline unit, and then it would AoE the back, and if the back wasn't strong enough, it would just one shot and burst it. And so putting her in the front or the second row allowed her backline access. And so Kale, on top of Yone, which we'll talk about in a little bit, that in tandem was basically wiping backlines like crazy. And so they stop, they're nerfing Kale's ability to be able to hit past its primary target. Iced is probably going to be able to hit a little bit beyond it, but not that much more. And then Tome of Power damage decreased to 15%. So now this is I believe the third option. This is 7 Storyweaver Kale, right? Let me see. Tactics.tools. I believe third item Kale. This is Talisman of Might. That's the first one. And this is the Scroll of Force. And then Tome of Power. So 7 Storyweaver Blue Kale. Okay. All right. Champions. Even when 14.7 went live, Bard was already falling out of the meta as new comps had arisen. Our nerf to his base attack speed came as too much when taking into account the other nerfs his go-to comp received more indirectly. We're giving a bit more attack speed back to our favorite caretaker of LP. Okay, so basically this is them acknowledging that the meta has shifted a little bit away from Bard, and therefore they might have not needed to nerf him. That's crazy. So basically they just nerfed him and then unnerfed him. So he's back. Basically nothing happened to Bard. Speaking of comps that became prominent in the last days of 14.6, Yone's success came out of nowhere as players learned to build around him as a solo character. Came out of nowhere? Hold on a second. I think they mean Heavenly Yone's success came out of nowhere. Hold on 1 second. We need to fact check this. Frodan tier list. Best comps tier list for TFT set 11 by Frodan 2 weeks ago. March 20th. And where did Frodan have Yone on his tier list? Number 1. I had Yone at number 1 at the start of set 11. I had Yone at the very top, and I was worried that I was going to be wrong because, okay, this tier list looks kind of bad in hindsight. I was right that Teemo was a good unit, but Teemo reroll itself was not S tier, but Teemo was a good unit, right? And then Lilia fell off. Syndra was Fated was good. Bard was good. Gnar, this is the reroll Gnar, and then ended up falling, right? And then all these ghostly started rising up. Ophelia should have been S tier, so on and so forth. But Yone, I mean, come on, man. It came out of nowhere. Yone's success came out of nowhere as players learned to build around him as a solo carry as opposed to a dual and umbral.
Thanks for all the solid content. Keep killing it.
Bemi, thank you for the 7 months, and you're welcome. Thanks for supporting the channel. We're lowering the rate at which he casts and the shields he gets from each cast to make him vulnerable to burst and punishable by careful positioning. Pro tip, you want your carries to target him early in a fight before he can stack up Titan's Resolve. So for example, if you're playing like Kaisa really wants to focus on Yone. But more on that in a little bit. Bard attack speed 0.75 to 8. Yone mana nerf by 10, which is a big deal because how many times have Yone barely survived, right? Like Yone is about to go down, Then he casts, he gets that shield, he heals back up to like 40%. Then you're like, okay, surely the next rounds of attacks will get him down. He gets down to like 2%, then he casts again and he heals back up. This is a big deal. We'll see. I do like that they left him a little like the 10 though, because it would feel super bad if he was 0 out of 70 and he's not able to get the second cast. Yone ability shield now also reduced by 30 over that 3 out of 28. Like 7% nerf. No, actually, sorry. A little bit over that. 13% nerf. That's pretty significant. 13% nerf. Okay, that should help a lot. Yone's too survivable. The shield is also a really big nerf to just the fact that Heavenly can't protect him as much with the resistances, the resistance of the Titans.
I'm getting more dogged
Things
again.
of that sort. Good guy, Ben. Thank you for 3 months. Yone's success came out of nowhere. Okay, yeah, come on, Raptor. Who could have predicted this? In Rise Defense, who could have predicted this? Augments. Twin Terror, Porcelain comps are strong prior to 14-7. They're not wrong. They're not wrong. How many of you guys made fun of me for playing Twin Terror Lux? Remember, you guys were like, this comp looks really bad. And I was like, I low rolled. Anyways, Twin Terror, Porcelain comps were strong prior to 14%. For much needed buffs to Lux, who had no comp outside the augment, took the comp to a state where balancing it meant making Lux unclickable. When you don't have the augment, we've opted to disable the augment for the rest of this set. We've opted to disable the augment for the rest of this set. What? Was this really necessary? Wait a second. What about all the other cool versions of this comp? Oh my god. They're just worried that it's going to be a balancing nightmare because they're right. They're right, actually. Because if they buffed Lux, but then Twin Terror becomes broken, what happens to every other champion potentially as well? So they're worried like, hey, let's say if let's just say like a terrible unit like Kha'Zix, they continue to buff Kha'Zix, whatever, and then Twin Terror Kha'Zix becomes insane. Or everyone kept saying like Ashe need to get buffed. They buffed, and now Twin Terror Ashe gets insane. I get that, but like that's kind of crazy, man. I have to disable the augment. I'd rather Lux be unclickable and have Twin Terror. I don't know about that, but we'll see. P.S. Have you noticed that our Twin Terror comps always have a Mumu in them? That might be the reason he has no friends. Oh, also, by the way, I missed this part. They plan on revisiting the concept in the future. I mean, sure, yeah. Double Trouble, Twin Terror, that'll definitely, that does definitely come back at some point. It's probably too insane with Porcelain. Yeah. I mean, there's probably a lot more abusable stuff we haven't discovered, but that's what makes it fun, though. Like part of what makes TFT Academy, let me see. Part of what makes it so interesting is that look at how many comps are currently in it. This was updated a few hours ago. We have like 30 comps here, but we know that we didn't even include like built different. The only Twin Terror comp we have here is Lux. And we already knew that there was more Twin Terror stuff to be discovered. And so we add the caveat like this isn't even all the comps. And that's a really cool thing visualized here. When you're looking at all these comps, you're like, man, there's a lot of things you can play in TFT. This is sad. You just took out some cool stuff. Whatever. I mean, it is what it is, I suppose. Lucky Paws Kabuko ability damage reduced from 300% down to 250. How much was it buffed in the first place? Hold on, let me see. Let's go back to Kabuko. They buffed his ability damage by 50%, and then they reduced it in terms of the actual damage 50%. I see. Interesting. I mean, it's not exact. It's still a net Kabuko buff, I believe. It's just that Lucky Paws doesn't scale it insanely. And then they disabled Twin Terror 1 and 2. Can you count the number of 4-cost champions? It should be 13. Kog'Maw now only increases his range every 3 casts instead of 2. That's right. That should have gone through the patch, but it did not. And then Kale's abilities cast visual no longer disappears early. Okay. What about Story Champion? I was told that Story Champion, the Garen augment, wasn't that supposed to go through? It didn't actually go through. Okay. I mean, it's still a massive patch, but We'll have to play a little bit post Yone and Kale nerf. What do you guys think? Thumbs up, thumbs down. What do you guys think of the patch?